Today we have nothing but awesome news. This is flat out awesome for both rideshare drivers and passengers alike. I consider this a huge win. What up, folks? Once again, it is your boy Tim with another ride sharing video. Whether you engage in ride sharing as a driver for Uber, Lyft, some other service, or even if you are a passenger, this is great, fantastic, flat out, beautiful news. Now, for us drivers, since the beginning of time in rideshare, there have been three issues of concern we have been constantly fighting for to give us a fair shake as drivers. Issue number one has always been pay. The pay has always been murky as to how they consider your pay. It's always been continuing to fall down. Wages over time have continued to drop. Pay is a major concern with virtually every driver in rideshare. Next would be safety. Sending us out passengers that do not even have to use their real name. Dealing with disabled folks, whether we are capable of handling assisted devices or not, we're demanded to have to partake in things like that. And of course, all of the issues that come along with dealing with service animals. And last but not least, transparency. How the hell do they figure out how much we earn per mile? If the trip goes from point A to point B and suddenly it takes 10, 15 minutes longer, what math do they do to determine and ingest our pay? We have no clue on how Uber or Lyft does any damn thing because the transparency level is cloudy at best. So those three issues, pay, transparency, and safety, are a major concern for all of us drivers.
Uber and Lyft could soon face tougher safety requirements in Illinois. A bill in the Capitol would get rid of an exemption for those companies, protecting them from liability if you get hurt while using one. It focuses on common carriers. Transportation modes like buses, trains, and airplanes fall under this category. That means if someone was riding in one of them and was hurt, not only would the person operating the bus or train be liable if they were sued, so would the company. But rideshare companies are not held to that same standard. Opponents of the bill argue that these companies shouldn't face the same level of safety standards because their drivers are independent contractors. One group supporting the proposal says they want to keep their workers safe on the job.
Our interest is simply protecting when railroad crews are being transported via TMPs, that some of the same safety requirements that are required under contract carriers, the same would go for TMPs.
Uber and Lyft don't own their vehicles. They don't maintain the vehicles, and they don't hire the drivers as employees.
Both Uber and Lyft are opposed to the bill. Uber argues that if the bill became law, it would hurt their ability to offer services in the state. Lyft says safety issues are extremely rare.
Lyft says safety issues are extremely rare. That's the last portion of that clip that was slightly cut off. Total bullshit. Yours truly, I do content all the time. Rideshare drivers getting their ass beat, being carjacked, and some of them losing their lives outright. Safety issues with Lyft, safety issues with Uber are not extremely rare. It happens all the damn time, particularly in some of the larger markets. Last year alone, between Thanksgiving and the first of the year, 39 carjackings in the city of Baltimore towards rideshare drivers in that one town. So this is not a rare issue. Nevertheless, this is House Bill 2231 out of Illinois. I'm going to give you all of the provisions on why this is a very, very big win for rideshare drivers in that state. Obviously, if Uber and Lyft now have to pay attention to safety, there are a host of issues that they push upon us drivers that we now have a hell of a lot of power to prevent from happening. As always, anytime there is avenues to sue a company, lawyers are going to lawyer. So there are going to be a hell of a lot of attorneys willing to speak up on the favor of rideshare drivers because they get the 33% cut or whatever if there is a settlement. So I want to give you some of the issues that us drivers deal with. You're probably familiar with, particularly my veteran drivers. Feel free to state that in the comments. But starting out, dangerous and unknown passengers. If you're picking up a passenger and that passenger harms you as a driver or carjacks you as a driver, there are going to be attorneys that can easily craft that and go after Uber or Lyft for a lawsuit, such as I did a story on a driver who actually dropped off the app. Lyft tried to contact the driver, and there was no response because the driver was in the damn trunk of the car, and Lyft did not do anything or have any follow-up for 12 hours. Now, if they try to reach out and contact you and ask you or if you are okay, they shouldn't be still waiting for a response 12 hours later. So things like that in terms of safety, certainly with passengers not using their real name. If you go and pick up a passenger and they got boo-boo on the profile with no picture and that passenger brings harm upon you, Uber and Lyft are going to probably hear from some attorneys. They're going to be attorneys that can easily craft issues to show they are at fault for that. Certainly, if you're putting passengers in vehicles that have a history of committing crimes, if they're going to do background checks on us and they have data on the passengers, I would expect that that's probably going to come down the pipe in regards to the state of Illinois. They're going to start probably doing a bit more, doing their due diligence to make sure some passengers are safe. Such as if there are complaints against one particular passenger, maybe being too aggressive, maybe, touching on folks and things like that, and they're now going to be held accountable to make sure that passenger can never get on the app again. Once again, if not, their ass will be sued. Next is disabled passengers. I've done videos about this because a hell of a lot of us drivers do not want the added duty, the added responsibility of not only having to deal with a passenger that has special needs, having to get out and do physical labor and things like that, oftentimes not receiving a tip, not receiving any acknowledgement. So the drivers quite naturally do not want to do extra work for zero acknowledgement. Also, when you're dealing with assisted devices that fold up and things like that, there's obviously a chance to injure your back. There's also a chance to have pinch points because when things fold up, they can pinch your skin and leave marks there. All types of injuries can come with dealing with assisted devices. If you are injured dealing with one now, you can actually go after Uber or Lyft for the damages. Even if it's a mild amount of damage, Uber and Lyft are now responsible for what the hell they send to you. That's a good thing for us drivers. If you're going to force us to partake in this, then you should be responsible if something happens to us in the process. If somebody picks up a heavy wheelchair or something like that, and they injure themselves, injure their back or something, and they can no longer earn a living, the only reason they picked up that passenger's assisted device is because you told them they had to. How could you not be responsible for that? So shout out to Illinois with House Bill 2231. Also, last but not least, service animals. There are a lot of issues that come along with being forced to deal with service animals, such as scratches. Animals sometimes move around in the vehicle. They can jump on drivers, scratch you up. Less frequently, but I assume bites are possible. If you got dogs and animals in the vehicle, a bite could be possible. One thing certainly is possible: damage to vehicles, scratching on the upholstery and things like that. Right now, you got a hell of a time getting Uber or Lyft to actually make you whole if something like that happens. And last but not least, allergies. A hell of a lot of us are allergic to animals and things like that. If you're going to force a driver to deal with something that they have an allergy to, at least pay for the damn Benadryl. They're not doing any of that. So all of this stuff, now with lawyers out there, as I said before, lawyers are going to lawyer. There's all sorts of crafty ways to hold Uber or Lyft accountable for some of the bullshit they put us through. So my guess is this is going to really revamp how they do ride sharing in the state of Illinois. And most likely it could falter into other places. A couple other issues. Exhaustion. A lot of drivers making very low wages drive all damn day. What if you drive the allotted 8-10 hours or whatever they let you drive on the app, 11 hours or whatever they let you drive continuously? Your last trip, they send you something that's 3-4 hours away or something like that. Do they cover any issues if you get involved in an accident or something? Right now, the answer is no. But after this bill passes, they're not going to be able to get away with that. I've had drivers in the comment section, took a passenger on a 4 or 5 hour trip. I had a guy drive someone from Dallas to Houston, realized they were exhausted when they got to Houston, and actually ended up renting a hotel room, spent the night because they didn't want to drive all the way back. That's a total loss. You drive someone 4 hours and you got to drive back 4 hours or 5 hours empty, and you're renting a hotel. That trip was not worth it. However, in this case now, if you send someone on a 6-7 hour trip or a 4 or 5 hour trip, and because they are impoverished, they want to take the trip back, if it goes over the allotted time period, perhaps they can go after Uber or Lyft for giving them something that put them in the realm of exhaustion. I know I'm a bit reaching on that one, but as I said, lawyers are going to lawyer. All sorts of crafty shit can be derived where Uber and Lyft are going to have to pay a hell of a lot of attention in regards to what they're putting us through. Last but not least, from a passenger standpoint, vehicle breakdowns, reliable transportation. In other words, let's say you have a flight as a passenger that you really are trying to catch, and Uber sends a vehicle to pick you up, and the damn thing breaks down in the middle of the trip. Right now, Uber and Lyft in many markets, particularly in my market, they don't do shit to make sure your vehicle is roadworthy. A lot of folks are doing this as a last resort to earn income. So there are plenty of vehicles on the road that probably should not be on the road. Certainly are not reliable enough to be guaranteed to get you from point A to point B if you're that passenger that really needs to catch your flight. Well, in this case, lawyers are going to lawyer. My guess is there are going to be lawsuits on behalf of the passengers that start holding the ride-sharing companies accountable for the vehicles they send out. If you're trying to get to work and the vehicle breaks down and all of a sudden you get in trouble with your job, can you hold them accountable? We'll see. But as I stated before, my guess is SB 2231 is going to really revamp how Uber and Lyft does ride sharing in that state. Now, Uber and Lyft, but predominantly Uber, who always pushes back, has already stated that, well, this might make us not necessarily be able to provide ride sharing in the state of Illinois. That's total bullshit. There are literally millions of trips in a city like Chicago, 8 million residents in the metropolitan area, Rockford, Springfield, Urbana, all of these cities in the state of Illinois. They're not going to get rid of the ride-sharing business in that state. There are too many trips, too much money to be made to let something like this make Uber completely basically leave the state of Illinois. That is absolutely not going to happen. That is nothing but a veiled threat in hopes of preventing this bill from going through. Now, last time I mentioned this bill, it had made it through the House of Representatives in that state, and it had to be put before the Senate. Well, the reason to bring this video to you today is it has passed in the Senate. It's just left up to the governor to sign, and it is widely expected that the governor is going to sign it. It's made it through the House and Senate. The governor will sign it. So this will become law in the state of Illinois very shortly. Hopefully, states like California, New York, and some of the more liberal, progressive states take suit. I don't know if you'll see this in some of the southern areas anytime soon, but this is huge. This is a huge amount of progress in at least the fight to make sure drivers' safety is a concern for these ride-sharing companies. We know it is not. We know damn well as drivers, they don't give a damn about our safety. So this is a huge step forward to make them by law have to pay attention to what the hell they're doing to us and who they're sending out to us. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, it's your boy Tim. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.
For the love